The folder I was not supposed to open the day my family took my house. They smiled like they had done me a favor. That is the part I still remember most clearly. Not the papers on the table. Not my mother's fake soft voice. Not my brother sitting there with his expensive watch, acting like the whole thing was already decided. Not even my father refusing to look me in the. What I remember is the smile. The same smile my mother used when she told me I should be mature. The same smile my brother used when he took the last piece of cake at my birthday and told me I was too sensitive. The same smile my father used whenever he wanted me to believe that losing something was somehow. They sat in my kitchen, in the house I paid for, drinking coffee from my mugs, using my table, leaning back in my chairs, and telling me that the house needed to be transferred. Not sold, not borrowed against, not discussed, transferred. My father placed his hand flat on the table and said, "Family has to help family." My mother nodded quickly like she had rehearsed that line. My brother Ryan did not even pretend to be ashamed. He leaned back, crossed one ankle over the other, and said, "It is not like you need all this space. You are single. I have a wife. I have kids. I have responsibility." I looked around the kitchen. The yellow curtains I had bought after saving for 3 months. The tiny crack in the tile near the stove that I had promised myself I would fix after the holiday. The wall where my daughter Emily had drawn a small pencil heart when she was 6, and I never had the heart to erase it. This was not just a house. This was the first place in my life where nobody could tell me to. And now my family was sitting inside it, trying to explain why I should hand it over to the same brother who had spent his whole life taking things from me. I asked one simple question. "Why, Ryan?" Not loudly, not like a movie villain, just a short, tired laugh, like I was wasting everyone's time, because I need it more than you do. There it was. Not because he had earned it, not because I owed him, not because there was some emergency that only my home could solve, because he needed it more. My mother reached across the table and touched my wrist. "You have always been stronger than Ryan. You always land your feet." That sentence did something inside me, because people love calling you strong when they want permission to hurt you. They say you can handle it so they do not have to feel guilty for what they are about to. I pulled my hand away slowly. My father cleared his throat. "The papers are already prepared," he said. "We just need your signature." I looked at him. "My signature?" He nodded. "And if I do not sign?" The room went quiet. Ryan's smile faded first. My mother blinked like she had not expected the question. My father finally looked at me, and for a second I saw something in his eyes that almost looked like warning. "Do not make this ugly." That was my name. Claire Whitman, 38 years old, mother to 1 daughter, owner of a small bookkeeping business that my family still called your little office thing. Woman who had spent her whole adult life cleaning up other people's messes, paying bills on time, saving receipts, reading contracts, and noticing what everyone else missed. Especially bank documents, especially signatures, especially lies. I looked down at the folder my father had pushed toward me. Inside were papers that looked official enough to scare someone who did not understand paperwork. But I understood paperwork. I had built my life by understanding the small print that people ignore. And that was why, even as my family sat in my kitchen trying to take my house, I did not cry. I did not shout. I did not beg. I simply opened the folder, and the first thing I saw was not my house being transferred. It was something much worse. It was proof that they had already tried. Stay with me, because what happened next did not just expose my family. It froze their bank accounts, shut down their plan, and made my brother finally understand that stealing from the quiet daughter was the biggest mistake of his life. The house I built from nothing. Before I tell you how the bank froze everything, you need to understand why that house mattered so much. It was never fancy. It was a 2-story house on a quiet street with old maple trees, a narrow driveway, and a porch that creaked every winter. The kitchen was small. The upstairs bathroom had weak water pressure. The basement smelled like dust whenever it rained. But it was mine. And when you grow up in a family where everything you own can be taken from you with one sentence, having something that is truly yours feels like breathing for the first. I was not the favorite child. That title belonged to Ryan before he could even walk. My mother said he was spirited. My father said he was ambitious. Teachers said he was disruptive, but my parents said he was misunderstood. When Ryan broke something, it was an accident. When I broke something, I was careless. When Ryan failed a class, he needed support. When I got a B instead of an A, I needed discipline. When Ryan needed money, it was family helping family. When I needed anything, I was reminded that life was not fair. By the time I was 17, I had learned not to ask. I worked after school at a grocery store. I bought my own winter coat. I paid for my own college application. When I was accepted into a small state college 2 hours away, my father said he was proud, but he never offered $1. Ryan did not go to college. He tried 3 different business ideas before he turned 25, and each time they failed, my parents called it bad time. They helped him with rent. They helped him with cars. They helped him with loans. I used to wonder what it would feel like to fail and still be loved. Then I had Emily. Her father left before she was born. He said he was not ready. That was the whole explanation. Not ready for a child. Not ready for responsibility. Not ready for the life we had talked about building. So I built it alone. I worked during the day and studied bookkeeping at night. I took clients slowly. Small restaurants first, then local shops, then contractors who hated paperwork but loved saving money at tax time. I was good at it because I had no room to be bad. Every bill mattered. Every dollar had a every late payment could turn into a crisis. When Emily was 4, I opened my own tiny office in a building that used to be a dentist's clinic. The carpet was ugly and the front window had a crack in the corner, but the rent was cheap, and I could bring Emily with me after preschool. She used to sit under my desk with crayons while I worked. Sometimes I would look down and see her drawing always houses. Big square houses with triangle roofs and flowers outside. One night, after I locked the office, she asked me, "Mommy, when do we get our house?" I said, "When." She said, "Can it have yellow curtain?" I laughed because I did not know where she had gotten that from. "Yes," I told her, "it can have yellow curtains. It took me 9 years. 9 years of no vacations, 9 years of old cars, 9 years of buying used furniture and pretending I liked it better. 9 years of ignoring my mother when she said I worked too much. 9 years of Ryan making little comments about how I was playing business. Then I found the house. The first time I walked through it, there was sunlight in the kitchen. There was a small bedroom with a window facing the maple tree. There was a backyard big enough for Emily to run. And the living room wall had the perfect place for family photos, even if most of my family did not deserve to be there. I made an offer the same day. The bank approved my mortgage because my records were clean, my income was steady, and unlike Ryan, I had never treated debt like a game. The day I got the keys, Emily was 13. She walked into the kitchen, saw the yellow curtains I had bought before the closing was even finished, and started crying. Not loud crying, just quiet tears while touching the fabric. "You remembered," she said. Of course I remember. Mothers remember the promises that children think are small. For 6 years that house became our safe place. Emily studied at the kitchen table. We planted tulips near the porch. I fixed the upstairs bathroom one slow repair at a time. Every December we put a small tree by the front window. My parents visited sometimes, mostly to comment. My mother said the living room looked plain. My father said the roof would be expensive. Brian said I was lucky the bank had taken a chance on me. Lucky. That word again. As if luck had paid the mortgage. As if luck had worked late nights. As if luck had sat beside Emily during fevers and school projects and heartbreak. Still, I stayed polite. Because that is what the unfavored daughter learned. Keep the peace. Smile through the insult. Do not start trouble. But peace built on silence is not peace. It is a room full of people waiting for you to finally break. And Ryan had been waiting for years. Ryan's perfect life was falling apart. Ryan's trouble did not arrive all at once. It started as small thing. A new truck he could not afford. A bigger house than he needed. Vacations he posted online before paying his bills. A wife, Madison, who loved being seen as successful more than she loved actually being safe. Private school tuition for their kids, country club fees, dinners at restaurants where the waiter knew their name. To outsiders, Ryan looked like he had made it. He wore clean shirts and expensive shoes. He spoke loudly about investment. He used words like equity and leverage even though he could barely explain his own credit card statement. My parents adored it. They liked telling people Ryan was in real estate. That sounded better than saying he was buying small properties with borrowed money and hoping prices kept rising. Whenever I warned them, they rolled their eyes. "Do not be negative," Mom would say. "I am not being negative," I told her once. "I am reading numbers." My father said, "Numbers do not tell the whole story." That was funny, coming from a man who had spent his life ignoring numbers until someone else had to pay them. Ryan's first big problem came when one of his rental properties sat empty for 6 months. Then another needed repairs he could not afford. Then interest rates changed. Then his business partner. Then Madison refused to downsize her life, as she put it. Ryan started borrowing, first from banks, then from credit cards, then from my parents, and eventually, though I did not know it yet, from people who did not send friendly reminder letters. My parents drained their savings quietly. They told me nothing. But I noticed. I noticed my mother stopped talking about cruises. I noticed my father delayed dental work. I noticed their car insurance payment bounced 1 month because the office where I kept their old tax documents called me by mistake. When I asked if everything was okay, my mother said, "We are fine." That meant they were not fine. Then one evening, Ryan came to my house alone. No Madison, no kids, no fake confidence. He stood on my porch in a navy jacket, rubbing his hands together even though it was not cold. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. He came inside and looked around like he was measuring the wall. "You know," he said, "this place has gone up a lot in value." I was pouring coffee. I stopped. "Has it?" He smiled. "Come on, Claire. You know it has." I did know. I also knew that the value of my house had nothing to do with him. He walked into the living room and touched the edge of the mantel. "You and Emily could move somewhere smaller." I stared at him. He said it like he was suggesting a new paint color. "Why would we do that?" He shrugged. "I'm just saying. You are not using the space the way a family would. A family does use it," I said, "me and Emily." He looked away. Ryan never liked being corrected when the truth was simple. Then he told me he had a temporary cash issue. Not a crisis, not debt, not failure. A temporary cash issue. He wanted me to take out a home equity loan. Just for a few months, he said. He would pay it back. Nobody would be hurt. I listened until he finished. Then I said no. His face changed so quickly that it scared me. Not because he shouted, because he went still. "You do not even want to think about it." "I have thought about it. The answer is no. You have equity sitting here doing nothing." "No," I said. "I have a home." He laughed under his breath. "There it is. The speech." "What speech?" "The poor single mother speech. The I did everything myself speech." "The nobody helped me speech." I felt my face burn. Because he was mocking the truth like it was a performance. I said, "You need to leave." He stepped closer. "You know Mom and Dad gave you opportunities too." I almost laughed. What opportunity? He pointed around the room. This. Stability. Support. I said, Ryan, they never gave me $1 for this house. They gave you a place to grow up. That was not a gift. That was parent. For once, he had no answer. He left angry. 2 days later, my mother called. She cried. She said Ryan was under pressure. She said Madison was scared. She said the kids might have to leave their school. She said my house could save everyone. Everyone. That word did not include me. I told her no. Then my father called. His voice was cold. You are being selfish, he said. I said, I am protecting my daughter. He said, Emily is almost grown. That sentence told me everything. In their minds, my daughter's stability had an expiration. Ryan's comfort did not. For 2 weeks they called, they texted, they visited, they tried guilt, anger, tears, silence, and shame. Then everything stopped. No calls, no messages, no visits. That should have made me feel relieved. Instead, I felt the way the air feels before a storm. Still, heavy, wrong. I did not know they had moved from begging to planning, and I did not know that my own father had taken something from my desk the last time something small, something that seemed harmless. A copy of my signature, the papers on my kitchen table the morning they came with the folder. Emily was at college. That mattered. I think they chose that day because they knew I would be alone. It was a Saturday. I had just finished watering the tulips when I saw my parents' car pull into the driveway. Ryan's SUV came right behind them. My stomach tightened. Families do not arrive in groups for casual visit. My mother got out first. She had a covered dish in her, like bringing food could soften betrayal. My father carried a leather folder. Ryan carried nothing. That was always his style. Other people carried the weight. He carried the confidence. I opened the door. My mother kissed my cheek and said, we need to talk. I wanted to say no, but old habits are strained. Even when you are grown, even when the house is yours, even when you pay every bill, a parent's serious voice can still make you step aside. They walked in. My mother placed the dish on the counter. My father sat at the kitchen table. Ryan opened my refrigerator without asking. That small act made something in me harden. He took a bottle of water and leaned against the counter like he owned the place already. My father opened the folder. We have found a solution, he said. I stayed standing. A solution to what? He looked annoyed. To the family problem. Ryan said, my problem, Claire, you can say it. I looked at him. Fine. Ryan's problem, my mother whispered. Please do not start. I almost laughed. They had come to my house to take it, and somehow I was the one starting something. My father pulled out the paper. He explained that Ryan and Madison needed to stabilize their finance. The bank was pressing them. Their lender was losing patience. They could refinance if they had stronger collateral. My house, he said, had enough equity to solve it. I said, my house is not collateral for Ryan's mistakes. My mother flinched. Ryan's jaw tightened. My father continued like I had not spoken. He said the cleanest option was to move the title into a family trust temporarily. That was the phrase he used. Family trust. Temporarily. Those are the kinds of words people use when they want theft to sound responsible. I asked who controlled the trust. He said we would all be involved. I said who controls it? He hesitated. Ryan answered. I would be trustee for now. There it was. I laughed once, not because it was funny, but because my body did not know what else to do. You want me to transfer my house into a trust controlled by Ryan? My mother said. Only until things settle. Things will not settle. Ryan is drowning. Ryan slammed the water bottle down. You do not know anything about my business. I know enough. You keep books for plumbers and coffee shops. He snapped. Do not act like you understand real money. That line should have hurt. It did not, because by then I had seen enough men like Ryan sit across from me with unpaid invoices, tax notices, expensive watches. They always thought real money was loud. Real money is quiet. Real money keeps records. My father pushed the papers closer. Sign them. Not please. Not think about it. Not we are asking. Sign them. I sat down. I opened the folder. The first page was a transfer document. The second was a trust summary. The third was a bank authorization form. My eyes moved quickly. Too quickly for them. I saw the property address. I saw Ryan's name. I saw my father's initials in places they should not be. I saw a notary stamp that made my skin go cold, because the date on one page was from the previous week, a week when I had not signed anything. My mouth went dry. I turned another page. There it was. A copy of my signature. Not perfect, but close enough to scare me, close enough for someone careless to accept, close enough to prove this was not a request, it was a cleanup. They had already tried to move my house. I looked up slowly. My father's face told me he knew I had found it. My mother looked confused, which meant she had either not known the details or had worked very hard not to ask. Brian stared at me with a challenge, like he was daring me to say the word. So I did. Forgery. The kitchen went silent. My mother whispered, Claire. I kept my eyes on my father. This is a forged signature. He said nothing. Ryan scoffed. Do not be dramatic. I turned the page around and pushed it toward him. That is not my signature. It is close enough, he said. The moment he said it, my mother gasped. My father closed his eyes. Ryan realized too late what had come out of his mouth. Close enough. 2 words. That was the first crack in there. I stood up and took my phone from the counter. My father said, What are you doing? Calling my attorney. Ryan laughed again, but this time there was fear inside it. You do not have an attorney. I looked at him. I do bookkeeping for 3 law firms. Then I picked up the folder. My father reached for it. I pulled it back. This is evidence, I said. His voice dropped. Claire, do not make a mistake you cannot I looked at my father, the man who had taught me to be quiet, to be patient, to accept less, to keep the family together even when the family was breaking me apart. And for the first time in my life, I did not feel small in front of him. No, I said. You already made it. The bank call that changed everything. I did not call the police first. That may surprise you. But when you work with financial records long enough, you learn that the fastest way to stop a moving train is not always the loudest way. It is the right call to the right person. My family was still in my kitchen when I called Marcus Bell. Marcus was an attorney, but more importantly, he was the kind of attorney who did not waste words. His firm had been one of my bookkeeping clients for 4 years. I knew how carefully he worked. I knew he hated messy family. And I knew he owed me a favor because I had once found a payroll error that saved his office from a tax. He answered on the 3rd ring. Claire, I said. Marcus, I need you to listen carefully. My father stood. Do not do this here. I ignored him. I told Marcus my family had brought transfer papers to my house. I told him there appeared to be a forged signature. I told him there was a notary stamp. I told him there was a bank authorization. Marcus did not interrupt. When I finished, he said, take photos of every page right now. Do not let anyone leave with the folder. Ryan muttered, this is insane. Marcus heard him. Is that your brother? He asked. Yes, good, Marcus said. Put me on speaker. I did. Marcus's voice filled the kitchen. This is Marcus Bell, attorney for Claire Whitman as of this moment. No one in that room is to remove, destroy, alter, or touch those documents. If anyone attempts to take them, Claire will call law enforcement immediately. Is that understood? My mother started crying. Ryan said, you cannot threaten us. Marcus replied calmly, that was not a threat, that was instruction. Then he asked me for the bank name listed on the authorization. I read it out loud. There was a pause. Marcus said, Claire, do you have online access to your mortgage account? Yes, log in. My hand shook, but I opened my laptop. My father sat down slowly. Ryan tried to act bored, but his knee bounced under the... I logged in. At first, everything looked normal. Mortgage balance, payment history, escrow, insurance. Then I saw a notification, a pending request. My breath stopped. There was a title verification request connected to a refinancing applicant. Not mine, Ryan. The bank had not completed it yet. It was pending review. That was the only reason my house was not already tangled in his disaster. Marcus said, take screenshots. I did. Then he said, call the bank fraud department, not customer service. Fraud. My mother cried harder. Claire, please, she said, please do not do this. I looked at her. Did you know? She covered her mouth. That was answer enough. Maybe she did not know every detail, but she knew something was wrong and she came anyway. I called the bank. The first woman transferred me. The second asked security questions. The third finally understood the seriousness when I said, there is a suspected forged document attached to a refinance attempt involving my property. Everything changed after that. Her voice became slow and careful. She asked if I was safe. That question made Ryan angry. Oh, for God's sake, he said. The bank representative heard him and said, Ma'am, would you like me to remain on the line while you leave the property? I almost smiled. My name is the only one on the property. They are the ones leaving. Ryan turned red. The representative asked me to confirm the document. I uploaded photos through a secure link. I sent the screenshots. Marcus stayed on speaker, guiding every word. Then the bank representative said the sentence that changed everything. We are placing an immediate fraud hold on all connected applicants and accounts pending investigation. Ryan stood up. What account? The representative could not discuss details with him, but Marcus explained it after she ended the call. If Ryan used these documents as support for any loan, refinance, credit line, or collateral package, the bank can freeze the related process. If they believe fraud is involved, they may also restrict connected accounts during... Ryan looked at my father. My father looked away. That was when I understood. This was bigger than my house. Ryan had used my property documents to support more than one financial move. Maybe he thought I would sign eventually. Maybe he thought the bank would approve before I noticed. Maybe he thought family pressure would scare me into silence. He had gambled with my home. And now the bank had stopped the table mid-game. Ryan grabbed his phone and walked into the hallway. I heard him whispering fast. What do you mean it is frozen? No, check again. I need that transfer today. You do not understand, I have payroll. Payroll. That word stuck. Ryan had employees, contractors, investors, people expecting money. For the first time I saw panic take shape in him. Not guilt, panic. Because men like Ryan are not afraid when they hurt people. They are afraid when the consequences finally touch them. My father stood and walked toward me. His voice softened. Claire, listen to me. This can still be handled inside the family. I looked at the documents on the table. Inside the family is where the crime happened. He flinched. My mother whispered, he is your brother. I turned to her. And I am your daughter. She looked down. That silence hurt more than Ryan's betrayal. Because deep inside, part of me had still wanted her to but she did not. Ryan came back into the kitchen, pale now. You need to call them back. No, Claire, I am serious. So am I. His voice cracked. You do not know what you just did. I looked at him, and for the first time I saw the scared boy my parents had spent their whole lives protecting from consequences. No, Ryan, I said. You do not know what you did. When the truth started calling back by Monday morning, my phone would not stop ringing. First Marcus called, then the bank investigator, then a title company, then a notary office, then finally Madison. Ryan's wife had never called me unless she needed something, and even then she usually sent a text full of fake sweetness. This time, she called 3 times in a row. I answered on the 4th. She did not say hello. What did you do? I was sitting at my office desk, looking at a stack of client invoice, trying to act like my life had not turned into a legal storm over the weekend. I said, good morning to you too. Do not play games, Claire. Our accounts are locked. Our business account, personal account, everything is under review. I leaned back slowly. The bank had moved fast. Madison's voice shook with anger. Ryan says you accused him of fraud. I gave the bank documents that had my forged signature silent. Then she said that cannot be true, but she did not sound sure. I asked, did you see the documents? No. Did you ask him where the collateral came from? He said your family was helping. My family. There it was again. The soft blanket thrown over something sharp. Madison lowered her voice. Claire, listen. I have children, have bills. If this continues, we could lose everything. I closed my eyes because I knew what she wanted. She wanted me to feel guilty for protecting myself, just like my parents. I said, I also have a child. She is in college. And your point? My kids are young. I opened my eyes. Madison, my daughter was young when I was building this house with no help. Nobody cared then. She said nothing. For a moment, I heard only her breathing. Then she whispered, Ryan told me you agreed. That sentence was different. Not angry, afraid. I believed her. Madison was vain. She was proud. She loved status. But I did not think she was stupid enough to knowingly attach herself to forged property documents. I said, I never agreed. She started crying, quiet at first, then harder. I asked him, she said. I asked him if you had signed. He said the paperwork was just a formality. He said your father handled it, my father. My chest tightened. Until that moment, part of me had hoped Ryan had acted alone, and my father had simply gone along too late to stop it. But Madison's words made that hope smaller. He said Dad handled it? I asked. Yes. I wrote it down. That had become my habit. Every call, every detail, every name, every time. When your family lies, paper becomes safer than memory. By noon, Marcus called again. The notary stamp is real. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means the notary exists, but she says she never witnessed your signature. Her stamp was used without proper authorization. How? Still being investigated. But the title company flagged the paperwork because the signature did not match the one on file from your original closing. I almost cried from relief. A stranger at a title company had noticed what my family hoped nobody would. Marcus continued. The bank has frozen the refinance package and restricted several accounts connected to Ryan's business pending. They may file their own report. You also need to file a formal complaint. I looked at my office door. Through the glass, I could see Emily's old drawing framed on the wall. She had made it when she was little, a house with yellow curtains. I said, I will. That evening, my parents came again. This time, I did not let them inside. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. My mother looked smaller than usual. My father looked angry enough to hide fear. He said, you have gone too far. I almost laughed. I went too far. Ryan's business is frozen because Ryan used forged documents. My mother said, he made a mistake. I looked at her. No. A mistake is writing the wrong date. A mistake is forgetting to send a form. This was planned. My father pointed at me. You always wanted to punish him. There it was. The old family story. Ryan failed, and someone else is cruel for noticing. I said, I wanted him to leave my house alone. You could have helped him. I said no. Family does not say no. That sentence was the key to everything. In my family, love meant access. Access to my time, access to my peace, access to my money, access to my home. And if I locked the door, I became the villain. I stepped closer. Family does not forge signatures either. My mother cried again. But this time, I did not move toward her. My father's voice dropped. If this becomes public, it will ruin him. I said, then he should have thought about that before trying to ruin me. For a second, nobody spoke. Then my father said something I will never forget. You were always difficult to love. It landed like a stone. Not because I believed it, because I realized he did. All those years I had tried to earn warmth from people who saw my boundaries betrayal. My mother whispered his name, shocked, but she did not deny it. I opened the door behind me. You need to leave. My father stared at me. This is not over. I looked back at him. No, I said, it is not. And here is where the story shifts completely, because the next person who called me was not a lawyer. It was my brother's business partner. And he had been waiting for someone to finally ask the right question. The partner who brought the receipts, his name was Daniel Price. I had met him twice, both times at family events where Ryan introduced him as my numbers guy, which was funny because Ryan hated numbers unless they made him sound rich. Daniel called me on Tuesday morning. His voice was careful. Claire Whitman? Yes, this is Daniel Price. I used to work with Ryan. Used to. That word mattered. He asked if I had a few minutes to talk. I told him my attorney should be part of any conversation. He said, good. I was hoping you would say that. An hour later, Marcus and I were on a call with Daniel. Daniel explained that he had left Ryan's company 3 months earlier after finding irregularity. That was the polite word. He said Ryan had been moving money between accounts to make the business look healthier than he had promised investors that new collateral was coming. He had told lenders that family property would secure a new line of credit. My property. I sat in Marcus's office with my hands folded so tightly my fingers ached. Daniel said he told me you were fully aware. I was not. I believe you, Daniel said quickly. That is why I called. Then he sent documents, email, draft applications, internal notes, text message. One message from Ryan made my stomach turn. Claire will cave. Dad is handling her. Dad is handling her? Not asking me, not respecting me, handling me. Another message said, once title clears, bank releases hold, we catch up, then clean it later. Clean it later. That was Ryan's whole life in 3 words. Break it now. Hide it later. Make someone else pay. Marcus read silently for several minutes. Then he looked at me and said, this is not just family pressure, this is a financial fraud attempt. I felt strange, not happy, not even angry, just hollow. Because there is a difference between suspecting your family is willing to hurt you and seeing the plan written down in their own words. Daniel also explained why the bank freeze had scared Ryan so badly. The refinance package was not just about saving his house. It was tied to multiple payments due that week. If the bank did not release funds, Ryan could not pay contractors, investors, or a private lender who had already sent formal demand notice. In simple words, my house had been the last card holding up his tower, and I had pulled it out. No, that is not right. He had built the tower on my house without permission. I had simply stopped it from crushing me. Daniel said something else. There is more. Marcus leaned forward. What kind of more? Daniel hesitated. Ryan has been telling people Claire was part owner of one of the holding companies. I stared at the phone. What? Daniel. Your name appears in one draft document, not filed as far as I know. But he used your reputation, your bookkeeping business, your clean credit history. He told a lender you were joining as financial controller after the refinance. I almost stood up. The room tilted. My name, my business, my reputation. Ryan had not just tried to take my house, he had tried to borrow my credibility. For years, my family had mocked the quiet, careful life I built. But when Ryan's loud life started falling apart, he reached for the one thing he never respected, my good name. Marcus's expression hardened. Claire, we need to move quickly. That afternoon, we filed the formal report. Bank fraud department, title company, state notary office, local authorities, credit monitoring, property fraud alert, business identity protection. Every step felt heavy but also clean, like closing windows during a storm. By evening, Ryan called me 18 times. I did not answer. He texted, you are ruining my... Then, call me before this gets worse. Then, mom is sick over this. Then, you think you are better than us. Then finally, I need one conversation. I stared at that last message for a long time. There had been a time when pleas from Ryan would have moved me. Not because he deserved it, but because I had been trained to respond to his need like a fire alarm. But now I understood something. Some people say please only after force does not work. I did not reply. The next morning I found my parents sitting in my office waiting room. My assistant, Julia, looked uncomfortable. They said it was urgent, she whispered. I invited them into the conference room, but I left the door open. That was not an accident. My father looked around with disgust, like my small office offended him. My mother held tissues in both hands. My father said, you need to withdraw the complaints. No. You do not understand what will happen. I understand exactly what will happen. People will investigate. His face tightened. You would send your brother to court? I did not send him anywhere. His choices did. My mother spoke then. Claire, what do you want? That question stunned me. Because for once, she was not telling me what Ryan needed. She was asking what I want. But it came too late, and for the wrong reason. I said, I want my house left alone. I want my name cleared. I want Ryan to stop using me. I want you both to admit what happened. My mother looked at my father. He said nothing. I asked him directly, did you take my signature from my desk? His eyes flickered. My mother turned to him. What? There it was. The first moment she realized she had not been told everything my father said. I copied a document, that is all. My mother's face changed. A document from her house? He snapped. I was trying to save our son. I stood up slowly. And what am I? He looked at me, and for once he had no ready answer. That silence told my mother more than any confession. She started crying again, but this time it sounded different, less performance, more shock. My father stood. This family is finished if you continue. I opened the conference room door wider. No, This family was finished when you decided my house was easier to take than Ryan's pride. He left first. My mother stayed for 3 seconds longer. She looked at me like she wanted to say something. Maybe sorry. Maybe help me. Maybe I did not know. But she followed him anyway. And that was the last time I saw my parents before the bank. The day Ryan learned what frozen really means, the bank did not hold a courtroom trial. That came later. First came a formal review meeting. It happened in a glass conference room on the 5th floor of a downtown building. The kind where everyone speaks softly because the walls cost more than most people's cars. I was there with Marcus. Ryan was there with his attorney, a nervous man who kept adjusting his glasses. Madison sat behind Ryan, pale and quiet. My parents came too. I did not invite them. Ryan did. Maybe he thought their presence would pressure me. Maybe he still believed I would fold if my mother cried in the right room. But rooms matter. At my kitchen table, they had power. In that bank conference room, documents had power. And documents had always been my language. The bank investigator was a woman named Elaine Foster. She wore a gray suit and had the calm face of someone who had seen too many people lie badly. She began by explaining that the bank had frozen the refinance application, suspended pending credit decision, restricted movement on linked business accounts, and referred the matter to internal fraud review. Ryan's attorney objected to the word fraud. Elaine looked at him over her glasses. I said fraud review. That is the department handling. The attorney stopped talking. Then Elaine laid out the timeline. Application submitted. Collateral documents attached. Property ownership claimed as pending family transfer. Signature submitted. Notary stamp included. Title verification requested. Mismatch found. Property owner contacted indirectly through standard verification. Fraud hold placed after owner reported no authorization. Every sentence made Ryan smaller. My father stared at the table. My mother cried silently. Madison looked like she wanted to disappear. Elaine turned to me. Ms. Whitman, did you authorize the transfer of your property into the proposed trust? No. Did you sign the attached documents? No. Did you agree to allow your property to be used as collateral for Ryan Whitman's business or personal lending? No. Did you authorize your name to be used in connection with his business filing, credit application, or financial representation? No. Each no felt like a door. Not on me, on them. Then Elaine turned to Ryan. Mr. Whitman, would you like to explain how these documents entered your application package? Ryan's attorney touched his arm, warning him. Ryan swallowed. My father was helping with family paperwork. Elaine looked at my father. My father stiffened. Ryan continued. I believed Claire was going to sign. Elaine said belief is not authorization. Ryan said nothing. Elaine slid one page forward. This email states Claire will cave. Dad is handling. Did you write that? Ryan's face went red. His attorney closed his eyes for half a second. Ryan said, that was taken out of context. Elaine said, what is the context? No answer. Then she showed the message about cleaning it later. The room changed. Even my mother stopped crying. Elaine read it calmly. Once title clears, bank releases hold, we catch up, then clean it later. She looked at Ryan. What does clean it later mean? Ryan said. It was business language. I almost laughed. Elaine did not. What business language? He stared at the table. The silence lasted long enough to become the. Then Marcus spoke. My client's position is simple. She did not authorize any transfer, collateral use, representation, or financial connection. She requests written confirmation that her property is fully removed from all applications and that all records linking her Whitman's borrowing attempts be corrected. Elaine nodded. That will be done. Ryan turned toward me. For the first time, he looked less angry than desperate. Claire, he said, please. The sound of my name in his voice almost pulled me backward and back to childhood, back to being told to share, back to being told Ryan needed more, back to being told I was difficult if I resisted. But then I looked at my mother. She was staring at the email printout. Claire will cave. Dad is handling her. I think that was the moment she finally saw what her protection had created. Not a son who needed help. A man who believed everyone else's life was a tool. Elaine explained that the bank's restrictions would remain on Ryan's accounts until the investigation concluded. Certain funds would not be released. Certain lines of credit would be withdrawn. Certain relationships would be reviewed for possible termination. Ryan's attorney asked if there was any way to resolve it privately. Elaine's answer was short. Not at this stage. That was the moment the title of my story became real. My family took my house, then the bank froze everything. Not because I begged, not because I screamed, not because I wanted revenge for revenges, because the truth finally reached the people who could stop the lie. When the meeting ended, Ryan stood so quickly his chair rolled back. Madison followed him into the hallway, whispering his name. My father walked past me without looking, but my mother stopped. For a second we stood face to face in the hallway under bright office lights. She looked older than she had 3 days earlier. Claire, she whispered. I waited, her mouth trembled. I did not know he took your signature. I believed her. But belief is not the same as forgiveness. I said, you knew he wanted my house. She looked down. You knew. I said no. Her tears fell. You came anyway. She covered her mouth. I walked away before she could answer. Because some answers come too late to change the damage. What they lost and what I kept the investigation lasted weeks of phone calls, letters, document requests, and memories I wished I did not have to revisit. Ryan's business did not survive. That sounds dramatic, but the truth is simpler. It had already been failing. The bank freeze did not destroy a healthy business. It exposed an unhealthy one that had been leaning on. His credit lines were withdrawn. His investors demanded answers. His private lender filed claims. Contractors walked away. Madison moved with the kids to her sister's house for a while. My parents blamed me at first. Of course they did. My father told relatives I had overreacted. Ryan told people I had refused to help family. My mother said very little, which in our family was almost rebellion. But truth has a way of traveling faster when documents are attached. Daniel spoke to investigator. The title company confirmed the mismatch. The notary filed her own report. The bank corrected every record connected to my property. Marcus sent formal notices protecting my name and business. For the first time, my family could not rewrite the story by speaking. The paper spoke louder than they did. Emily came home one weekend after I finally told her everything. I had tried to protect her from it, but she was 20 now, not 6. She deserved the truth. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where my family had placed her. She listened quietly. When I finished, she looked toward the yellow curtain. Grandma and Grandpa really did that? And Uncle Ryan? Yes, she swallowed hard. Were you scared? That question almost broke me, because I had been. I had been scared of losing the house, scared of legal costs, scared of family judgment, scared of becoming the villain in a story where I was the victim, scared that part of me would still want their approval after everything. So I told her the truth. Yes, I said. But being scared does not mean you give people your life. Emily reached across the table and took my hand. I am proud of you. No sentence from my parents had ever healed me the way that one did. A month later, my mother came to the house alone. I saw her car pull up and almost did not open the door. But I did. Not because I owed her, because I was no longer afraid of what she might. She stood on the porch holding an envelope. I will leave if you ask me to, she said. I waited. She handed me the envelope. Inside was a letter. Not long, not perfect, but real. She wrote that she had spent her life protecting Ryan from consequences and calling it love. She wrote that she had confused my strength with lack of need. She wrote that she had watched me build a life and still treated it like something available for the family to use. Then one sentence stopped me. I am sorry I taught you that being my daughter meant being last. I read it twice, my mother cried. I did not hug her. Not then. Some people think forgiveness is a door you open all. It is not. Sometimes it is a window cracked in. Sometimes it is just choosing not to hate yourself for still loving people who failed you. My father did not apologize. Ryan did not apologize either. At least, not in the way that mattered. He sent one message months later. I hope you are happy. I deleted it, because I was not happy that his life fell apart. I was peaceful that mine did not. There is a difference. My house stayed mine. The bank placed extra protections on the title. Marcus helped me set up alerts. I changed locks, passwords, emergency contacts, and every document that still had my parents listed anyway. It felt strange at first, removing family from form. But then I realized something. A name on an emergency contact list should belong to someone safe and not someone who creates one. The following spring, Emily and I planted more tulip. The porch still creaked. The kitchen was still small. The upstairs shower still needed pressure work, but the house felt different. Not because it had changed, because I had. For years, I thought strength meant carrying pain quietly. Now I know strength can also mean putting the folder on the table and letting the truth speak. The lesson they never expected me to learn. People ask what revenge looked like in the. They expect me to say it looked like Ryan losing his business, or my father being exposed, or the bank freezing account, or my mother finally seeing the truth. But that was not the real revenge. The real revenge was waking up in my own house the morning after everything came out and realizing nobody could order me to feel guilty. That was the victory, not punishment. Freedom. For most of my life, my family used one sentence like a key. Family helps family. It opened my wallet. It opened my time. It opened my patience. It opened my silence. But they never understood the second half. Family helps family. Family does not erase family. Family does not forge signature. Family does not gamble with a daughter's home. Family does not call sacrifice selfish just because the answer is no. When Ryan tried to take my house, he thought he was taking walls, land, and equity. He did not understand that he was touching the one thing I had built from every year I survived being second place. He thought I would cave. He thought my father could handle me. He thought my mother's tears would soften me. He thought the bank would see papers and not people. But he forgot one thing. I had spent my life reading what people tried to hide in small print, and this time the small print saved me. If you have ever been the strong one in your family, you may understand this story in a way others do not. You may know what it feels like to be praised only when you are useful. You may know what it feels like to be called selfish for protecting what you built. You may know what it feels like to be expected to forgive before anyone even admits what they did. But listen carefully. Being strong does not mean being available for harm. Being kind does not mean being easy to use. And being family does not give anyone the right to take what you. Sometimes justice does not arrive with shouting. Sometimes it arrives through a bank hold, a lawyer's letter, a title record, a saved email, a screenshot, and one quiet woman finally saying, "My family took my house." Or at least they tried. Then the bank froze everything. But the truth set me free. And as I stood in my kitchen months later, watching sunlight move across those yellow curtains Emily once dreamed about, I understood the lesson my family never meant to teach me. A house is not just a place you live. Sometimes it is proof that you survive, and no one, not even family, gets to steal that from you.